In the winter, every year, thousands of people head for the Rocky Mountains to ski. They go there because they expect there will be lots of snow in the mountains. Now, you wouldn't take your skis to Florida, but you would certainly take your bathing suit because you expect it will be warm and sunny. Why do you expect certain types of weather in certain places? Because every area, every region of the world has its own particular climate, a weather pattern that repeats itself year after year. Hi, I'm Spencer Christian. Since ancient times, people have recorded statistics and descriptions of daily and seasonal weather. These records tell us that climates around the world have remained remarkably consistent over thousands of years. Looking at the map, you can see we divide the world into 5 major climate zones according to temperature. Polar climates, which are also called Arctic climates, are the coldest on Earth. They occur near the North and South poles. Desert climates are hot and dry all year round. Tropical climates, which occur around the equator, are hot and humid. Temperate climates are areas that are warm in summer and cold in the winter. Subarctic climates have long, cold winters, light snow, and cool summers. Now, we all know that some places are hot, some cold, some wet, some dry. So the question is, why?
What's the hottest place in the United States? And the answer is...
Death Valley. On July 10, 1913, the temperature in Death Valley, California reached 134 degrees Fahrenheit. We haven't had a hotter day in the United States since then.
The climate system is like an amazing machine powered by the sun. Sunlight is energy that changes to heat when it hits the Earth. The Earth absorbs the sun's heat. Then the Earth releases some of the heat and warms the air above. The warm air rises and develops currents. These currents form wind belts that travel tens of thousands of miles around the world, influencing climates everywhere. When we think of climate, temperature is one thing that comes to mind. Did you know that temperature tells us how much energy the Earth has absorbed from the sun? The higher the temperature, the more energy absorbed. So why do temperatures and climates vary from place to place on Earth? At the two extremes, the equator is the hottest place and the poles are the coldest. This is because the sun shines directly over the equator, where more heat from the sun is absorbed by the Earth. At the poles, the sun shines at a shallow angle, where less heat is absorbed. Another reason for different climates is how high a place is, called altitude. The air is thinner and absorbs less heat the higher the altitude. That's why the air at the top of a mountain is cooler than the air at the base of the mountain.
We all know that the sun keeps us warm, but do you have any ideas about how it affects the weather? The whole interaction between hot and cold air affects the climates of the entire world. Mr. Cole and our friends at the lab are working on a hot and cold experiment. Let's check it out.
Today we're going to try to create convection currents in water. Convection is heat moving in currents. What do you think creates convection currents in water? You guys ready to try to find out?
Yeah.
Great, let's go.
To do this experiment, we will need 2 large jars, a test tube rack with 2 test tubes, a pair of tongs, red and blue food coloring, ice water, hot water, a large aquarium filled with room temperature water, and an adult assistant. Ready? Let's begin. Place 1 jar in the aquarium. Fill it with water, then turn it over and rest it on the bottom of the aquarium. Do the same thing with the second jar. Add 5 drops of blue food coloring to a test tube. Add 5 drops of red food coloring to the other test tube. Add ice water to the test tube with the blue food coloring. Ask your adult assistant to pour hot water into the test tube with the red food coloring. very carefully, using the tongs, place each test tube horizontally on a jar in the aquarium. Watch the blue and red water pour out of the test tubes and see what happens. The cold blue water sinks and the hot red water rises. The rising of warm water and the falling of cold water creates a convection current like those in the oceans. Similarly, convection currents are found in the atmosphere, causing wind and weather changes.
Why is the beach cooler than the country or the city?
In the summer, the air over the ocean is cooler than the air above the land. As the warm air from the land rises, the cool air from the ocean blows in to replace it, and this is called a sea breeze. My assistant Tori joins me here at Weather Central. So Tori, what's cooking?
Well, unfortunately, Spencer, it's the Earth. As you mentioned earlier, climates have remained pretty much the same for thousands of years, but there is evidence that the whole world is warming slightly. We call this condition global warming.
There may be some natural factors that contribute to global warming, but the biggest culprit is us and the pollution we put in the sky. The exhaust from cars, manufacturing plants, and lots of other sources contains carbon dioxide and other gases that collect high up in the sky. These gases allow the sun to pass through, but they trap in heat that would normally escape the atmosphere. It's called the greenhouse effect because it's a lot like a greenhouse, where heat gets trapped inside. Some scientists think the greenhouse effect may raise the Earth's average temperature by a couple of degrees sometime in the future. Now, a few degrees might not sound like much to you and me, but it throws nature out of whack.
North America's only coral barrier reef is located along the Atlantic coast near Key West, Florida. Let's go down for a closer look. Our guides Craig Chirolo and Ray Hayes work for Reef Relief, a group dedicated to the protection and preservation of the coral reefs. What they've discovered is that the health of the coral reef is one of our most sensitive indicators of climate change. They're going to take us on a dive so we can witness this amazing world under the sea and find out how a rise in the temperature of the water may be threatening the coral. This is going to be great. Coral reefs are delicate marine environments, or ecosystems, where an abundant assortment of coral, sponges, tropical fish, sharks, and other animals live together. The reefs are so delicate that we can already see how temperature change is affecting these beautiful habitats. All around the world, from here in Florida to the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. While some of us think that corals are rocks, they are actually the skeletal remains of millions of tiny, slow-growing animals called polyps. The coral continuously grows new colonies of polyps on top of the skeletons of older ones, at a rate of 1/2 inch per year. In order for the coral to grow, it depends on a particular type of sea algae, which actually grows inside the polyp. That's what gives coral its yellow, brown, or bluish-gray color. The algae and coral have an interdependent relationship. One cannot grow without the other. Some scientists believe global warming is affecting this delicate balance. In recent years, the temperature of the water here during late summer and early fall is a little bit warmer than it used to be. But this slight change in temperature has a big effect on the algae. The algae loses its color and becomes transparent. The chalky skeleton underneath makes the coral look white, as if it's been bleached. This problem is called coral bleaching and is a sign that the algae is actually starving, which means the coral polyps are starving too. The longer the coral suffers, the greater the chance it will die. Fortunately, by March, when the water cools, the algae returns to health and the polyps thrive. Still, warmer water temperatures are slowing the growth of the coral reefs and even killing off parts of them. If we lose this beautiful environment beneath the sea that supports so many fish and other sea life, then we've lost part of the chain of life. By studying the coral reefs, we learn how a slight change in temperature can totally disrupt an ecosystem. Thanks to the work of Reef Relief and other groups like them, perhaps the world will hear the warning of the coral reefs and work together to address these environmental concerns.
Throughout much of the United States and Canada, our climate consists of 4 seasons: winter, spring, summer, and fall. These natural rhythms and cycles have a major influence on our daily lives. They affect the way we dress, the sports we play, even the food we eat. Farmers plant and harvest food according to the seasons. All of nature follows these rhythms and cycles. Plants come to life in the spring and go dormant during the winter months. Birds fly south in the winter and bears hibernate. You get the picture. Of course, what your seasons are like depends on where you live. In some climates, there are only 2 seasons, a wet one and a dry one. And still, in other climates, the weather hardly changes at all throughout the year. It all has to do with where you live on Earth and Earth's position with relation to the sun at a particular time of year.
We have seasons because the Earth tilts at 23.5 degrees, revolving on its axis as it orbits the sun. It takes the Earth an entire year to travel around the sun in an oval-shaped path we call an ellipse. When the North Pole is tipped towards the sun, it's summer in the northern hemisphere and winter in the southern hemisphere. 6 months later, when the Earth is on the other side of the sun, the South Pole is now tipping towards the sun. So it's summer in the southern hemisphere and winter in the northern hemisphere. This means that when Canadians are bundled up against winter's icy winds, Australians are on summer break.
Is it better to wear dark or light-colored clothing during the summer?
Light colors. Dark colors absorb sunlight and change it to heat. Light colors reflect light. Furthermore, if you wear layered clothes, they will trap the heat from the sunlight and keep you warm. Lightly woven fabrics worn in the summer breathe and allow the heat to escape from your body so that you stay cool.
Without fail, one season changes to the next every few months as the Earth continues its journey around the sun. Here's how the seasons occur in the northern hemisphere. The spring equinox, also called the vernal equinox, occurs on March 21st. Sunlight and darkness are the same length of time because the sun shines directly on the equator. No matter whether you're in the desert, the plains, or the coastal regions in North America, life emerges and grows. The summer solstice occurs on June 21st when the northern hemisphere is tilted toward the sun. On this day, the sun shines the longest of all days in the entire year. People living in the northern hemisphere experience warmer weather during this time. The autumn equinox occurs on September 21st. Just like the spring equinox, the sun shines directly on the equator and day and night are the same lengths. Signs of autumn in North America vary depending upon location. Leaves fall in many parts of the United States and Canada. In Southern California, Florida, and Mexico, the dry grass of summer begins to grow greener as rainfall increases. The winter solstice occurs on December 21st, when the northern hemisphere is tilted away from the sun. The sun shines for the least amount of time of any day of the year, beginning the coldest season of the year. In the northern and midwestern areas of North America, snow often falls, sometimes even blizzards, while other locations remain mild.
Why do the leaves change colors in the fall?
In the autumn, the lower temperatures cause some leaves to stop producing chlorophyll, the green pigment or coloring we see in leaves. This allows for other pigments, which are masked by chlorophyll in the summer, to color the leaves. Changes in temperature and the amount of light also stimulate the production of even more pigments. This is why fall leaves can be seen in many different and beautiful colors.
As I mentioned earlier, the Earth is divided into 5 major climate zones according to temperature. Looking at the map, you can see that all of these climates occur in North America, from the tropical climate of southern Mexico to the Arctic climate of northern Alaska. We also divide the continent into climate zones according to precipitation. There are 10 of these zones in North America. The Arctic and subarctic climates in Canada and Alaska consist of light precipitation, long cold winters, and very short cool summers. Now, if you live in the humid mid-latitude climate of the Midwest, Mid-Atlantic, and Northeast, you have warm summers, cold winters, and precipitation throughout the year. The interior continental climates of the West, in Montana, Wyoming, and Colorado, consist of light precipitation, hot summers, and cool or cold winters. High altitude climates vary with how high up you are and where the mountains are located. You can get lots of snow, like in the Rocky Mountains, and the weather is usually cooler the higher up you are. The hot, arid climates you'll find in parts of the Southwest and Baja California in Mexico get very little rain, very hot summers, and no winter at all. Humid subtropical climates in parts of Florida consist of long, hot summers, mild to cool winters, and precipitation throughout the year. The dry subtropical climate in New Mexico has hot, dry summers and mild, rainy winters. And the temperate marine climate in the Northwest gets lots of rainy days, mild winters, and warm summers. Can you see what climate zone you live in? That's one of the great things about living in this part of the world. Some like it hot, some like it cold. Pick a climate. We've got them all right here.
The ozone layer, which lies between 9 and 30 miles above the Earth, shields us from most of the sun's harmful ultraviolet radiation. But not all of it. Too much exposure to ultraviolet radiation may hurt plants and animals. Some people may even get skin cancer. To prevent the harmful effects of exposure to ultraviolet rays, especially in the summer, you should protect yourself by wearing light fabrics that cover your skin and apply sunblock lotions to exposed skin.
Spencer, I was wondering, you've been talking about all the things that affect climate, but what about something like El Niño?
Ah yes, El Niño, the child. It's called that because it generally occurs right around Christmas time, and El Niño is a Spanish term often used to refer to the Christ child. But El Niño is no child. Let's take a look.
Since 1950, scientists have been tracking El Niño and have learned much about how it changes our climate. El Niño is a weather phenomenon that surfaces every several years and warms up the eastern Pacific Ocean around the equator. Huge amounts of ocean water evaporate into the atmosphere, producing extra moist air. This drastically changes where major winds blow and where storms go. For instance, regions that normally have a wet climate will experience drought. Places that are typically sunny and dry have torrential downpours. Just take a look at how El Niño affected us in North America in 1997 and 1998. extinction that may occur.
Wow, that El Nino child certainly is naughty. Did you know that volcanoes can change the climate? It's really pretty amazing. All the ash and dust that an erupting volcano shoots into the air in a few hours can affect weather around the world for months. The floating ash acts like a huge cloud that blocks out the sun, creating cooler weather and sometimes spectacular sunsets. Now, eventually, we return to the natural rhythms and cycles that have determined our climates for thousands of years. You know, whether you live in Alaska or Florida, the factors that affect climate are the same. Like a fine-tuned clock, the Earth revolves around the sun heats the Earth warms the air rises, creating huge currents and wind belts, which form the basic weather patterns that circle the globe. The seasons change. That's what I love about the weather. On any given day, you never know quite what to expect. Yet, for thousands of years, the weather of the world has remained remarkably unchanged. That is why I boldly predict that this year, somewhere in North America, farmers will once again plant in the spring, kids will go swimming in the summer, trees will shed their leaves in the fall, and birds will fly south for the winter. You can always count on climate and seasons.